Hey up YouTubers, Simon B here again. How y'all keeping out there? Here we are, part 2 of the BMW rear end service. That didn't really go to plan last week, did it? So with all the problems we had last week and now rectified, we now have the rear end splines not rusted to the diff. So this week we'll continue what we did and hopefully get to the end. So stick around, stay tuned. So after last week's escapade, we got back into this position. So it's got the prop shaft back into the gearbox splines. The way I did that was just ease the rubber boot back at the gearbox end and teased it in from this end. We put the bolt and the pivot pin back into the diff. That needs torquing up to 100 Newton meters. There's 2 pin bushes in each side. There's one bush this side and one bush that side. This side on the left hand side comes off easily. There's a plastic cap there that you need to take off. That bushing comes out, and on the inside you need to knock it out from this side, and then that will do. I should have showed that really, but I'm not taking it apart now because it's now Loctited back in and it's done up to a torque setting of 100 Newton meters. New boot arrived, got it from Moto Works. I'll put a link down below where I got this from. And now we're ready to put the new boot back on. I have some new grease to put on to the splines, some marine grease apparently, water resistant, so we'll try that I think, and try and keep the power washer away from it. So the bolt's just in there as a pivot, so can rust it back in, even though it's got grease in it. There we go. So this is the grease, not expensive, silver hook, water repellent white grease. So I'm going to put this on the splines, a bit round there, and it's going to hopefully enable it to give us a seal where the boot goes onto the swinging arm. So that's how easy it should be. We're not going to put tons of this stuff on, but we're going to put enough on just to keep away, hopefully, the water. So we're going to put some on the joint on the bottom where it clips into the diff side, because that's usually the fixed point. You know, you don't need loads of this stuff on it. That's enough to keep the water at bay. So I'm going to have plenty left. So as you could hopefully heard that just basically clips in to both sides of it. Both sealing edges is going to get a smear. What I think would be good is if this swinging arm tube had a drain hole at the bottom, a little 3mm hole or something like that. Nothing major, don't really need anything major. And you could stick a toothpick in it now and again just to make sure that it's clear and no water in it. For BMW to look at. Put the lid back on that, so I'll only end up kicking it over. Quite difficult to see with the boot there now, quite easy before. Trial and error, there we go. Just get that bolt in temporary, just to get it held, the top one that wasn't making contact. So even if you leave a bit of grease about, you can easily wipe it off. It's a little bit cold in here, so this rubber is probably not the most pliable. All in and ready to go. So boot's back on, all greased up, all done, running lovely. So just need to put a bit of Loctite on this, get it tightened up, and get the torque setting. The torque setting for this is 43 Newton meters. We'll get that done. So when you're putting Loctite on, you don't need loads. This does need Loctite on. Imagine if the bolt came out. Also we're doing 70 mile an hour. So we've already set the torque wrench to 43. That's all it is. A bit of Loctite on that side, clean it off. So, rocking and rolling now.
So some of you might have asked, how come you didn't put any oil into the final drive when you drained it out before? Well, because we're going to lay it down, and there's a hole there where the ABS sensor goes into, and it'll all just drained out again. So don't forget, once you've put everything back together, you need to put some oil back in here. So rear end oil, 180 mils, 75/90, fully synthetic. Various ways of getting it from that into that. I bought myself a big syringe. I don't know if it's going to work very well, so we'll see what this goes like. Hopefully it'll be alright. Be like anything else, just take it easy, because there's not much air. It'll get out, and it'll come out as fast as you put it in. So just make sure everything's clean before it all goes back in again. I'll turn it back up. Now we're rocking and rolling. So this is the position that I thought I was going to be in last week, but we're not. So splines are done, final drive oil's in. So now what we're going to do, we're going to clean up the pistons, put new brake pads in, put the brake caliper back on. Once we put the brake caliper back on, we can then put the speed sensor and ABS sensor in, and then we'll be about done. Awesome. So because the pads were very well down, before you push these back in, what you could do with doing some brake cleaner and just give them a bit of a clean, because there's no point in pushing these back in past your rubbers full of dirt, because that's just going to cause problems. And before I push them back in, I'm going to put some red rubber grease on them, which will keep them clean and hopefully get into the rubber and keep them nice and moist, so they don't break down, dry out and start leaking. So I'm just going to put a small little bit of this on. Don't want too much of it, so I don't want it to start attracting dirt. It's a bit of Castrol red rubber grease, which is be used for brakes. So what I'm going to just do, before I push these pistons back in, I'm just going to put a bit of this grease on the pistons, just to keep them a little bit wet. And it's also good for the rubbers. It keeps them nice and soft and supple. It may look a lot at the moment, but what I'm going to do as I push it in, I'm just going to keep wiping it off. It's just so I don't damage anything. Just before you push these back in, just make sure that your reservoir hasn't got too much fluid in it, because if it has, you're going to have to take some out, because as we push these back in, it's going to displace the fluid out of here into them. Just slowly away, there's no rush, and you'll find it'll just give. So as you can see now, we're nearly all the way home with them. I'll take some of that excess of rubber grease off it, because when you do push them in, being a 2 caliper, it's worse when they're 4. When you push one in, another one will come out. But if you just take your time, it'll just push it in the right way. So we're nearly flat there. I'm not going to go all the way in, I don't think. So we'll just clean the excess of the rubber grease off. We don't want them on our pads, do we? So now I'm about ready to put the pads in. So the pin that goes in, that holds the pads in, to get it cleaned up, make sure it goes in freely before you start putting the pads in. There's nothing worse of doing it after. There's 2 split pins that go in each side just to keep that in. As you see, it's just a little bit awkward getting through the middle, because the middle's fully exposed to the road salt and everything else. So it's easier to clean everything up now, and finding that it won't fit into the caliper when you've got all your pads in. You don't want to get anything dirty, you don't want anything dirty. So one of the things you've got to remember is when you lubricate your brakes, it's a bit like your chain. Well, enough lubrication on it to lubricate it, but you don't want too much on, so then it attracts dirt, which can then build up and make it worse than better. I'm trying to put the pin through, and because of the spring that holds it up, it's just a little bit difficult. So what I thought is the easiest way, instead of trying to do it on my knee, I'll put the bolt back in, and then I'll better use a lever to get them in from there, because they come in and come out from there. So I think we'll do it that way. So same again with the brake bolts. These need a little bit of Loctite on them. Oop, there's enough there for 3 bolts there. So I'll just put them in to home. So put the bolts in, I won't torque them up just yet. And then we'll go in. So that's so much easier. Yeah, that was the easy way. There's 2 safety split pins to allow them to stop the pin coming out. Holding pins in, 2 split pins, safety pins to stop them falling out. So let's torque the bolts up now. 24. It is. For some reason this only goes to 30, so we'll it's got Loctite on it. We can now put the ABS sensor. We can put the ABS sensor, speed sensor, whichever you want to call it, back in to where it comes from. So because this has got a little bit of an O-ring in it, before I put it in the hole, I'm just going to get just a little smear of oil. I could have probably used the rubber grease, but I'm just going to use just a smear of oil just on that O-ring, so it's not dry. You don't want to insert things into holes that aren't lubricated, do you? No pun intended. This is about 4 Newton meters, so it's only plastic. It just needs a little bit of a nip. That's all it needs. So that's the ABS sensor back in. So there we go, boys and girls. A little bit of rear end service. Everything's okay, so what you just need to do is just keep an eye when you get out to make sure we've got no leaks, top and bottom, when it warms up. New boot installed, everything torqued up correctly. New boot, I'll put a link down below of where it got it from. Bit rear end service. All I've got to do now is put the wheel back on and the mud guard, mud splash. I don't think there's any point in showing you how to do that. I think you can all do that. So we'll probably leave it at that, I would say. While the wheel's off, I'm going to give this area a bit of a good clean and get some ACF 50 into it while it's out. So there we go, boys and girls. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. This is the position where we should have been last week, apart from we had the problems with the splines, but we got that sorted. Like I said, it wasn't going to be a step by step. It's just going to be something that I'll show you to do. There's plenty of loads of stuff out there of what you can do, but I'd recommend this. We've got another, what have we got now? We've got another 3-4 week. Get yourself out there, check it, get it done, get your back end service done. Dead easy to do. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the fluid in the clutch. As you know, it's mineral, it's not .4, and hopefully I'm going to change all the brake fluid. It was done a couple of years ago. I'm reading on the internet now they should be doing this every year, not every 2 years. And how many people out there can say they've changed the brake fluid on the motorbike? It just attracts water, it just boils up, and they don't work properly. So that hopefully coming next week, just before we get out for lockdown. If there's anything I've missed or anything you'd like to see, please comment down below. So if you're just following upon us again, don't forget, if you're new here, click that subscribe button, ring that bell. Every time I upload a video, you will get a notification. Out of lockdown, hopefully more coming to the channel. Couple of weeks time, oil change on the CCM, show you how to do it. Until then, as they say, keep safe, be safe, don't get COVID, and we'll see you soon.